Now we're in the last few verses talking about the battlefield. Now Paul's going to reckon this to being something like a battle and living in a battle on a battlefield. So let's talk about this. Philippians 1, 17 to 30. Well, not 17 to 30. Actually, that's wrong. To verse 27. There's a misprint. So verse 27. Only let your conversation be as it becometh the gospel of Christ, that whether I come and see you or else be absent, I may hear of your affairs, that you stand fast in one spirit, with one mind, striving together for the faith of the gospel. And in nothing terrified by your adversaries. That presumes a battle, doesn't it? Which is to them an evident token of perdition, but to you of salvation, and that of God. For unto you it is given in the behalf of Christ not only to believe in him, on him, but also to suffer for his sake, having the same conflict which you saw in me, and now hear to be in me. There's a lot in there, and this turned out to be much longer, many more slides than I thought it was going to be. I've got 65 slides on these 4 verses, which is ridiculous, but that's what I did. Okay, what do we have to defend today? What do we have to defend as believers? Paul wrote in Jude, well, Paul didn't write. Jude wrote in verse 3. I say verse 3 because there's only one chapter in Jude. Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that you should, here we are, earnestly contend, fight for, strive for, earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. So we're called to battle, we're called to strife, we're called to defend the scriptures, the doctrines. Earnestly contend for the faith which was delivered unto the saints. I've got a couple people on my prayer list that when I pray for them, this is what I pray, because they're very passive about things as Christians. It's okay, everything's all right. They're just this way, they're just that way. It just drives me crazy. We should earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. Fight for it, be willing to defend it. We're sons in a family. Let's back up a little bit. Where are we here in our Christian experience? We're sons in the family of God. We enjoy the fellowship of the gospel. There's that term again. We serve in the furtherance of the gospel. We're interested in missionary work and preaching and in promoting the word of God and introducing people to Christ. We are soldiers now defending the faith of the gospel. This is the next step. We're now soldiers also defending the faith of the gospel. Some of you have had, how many of you in here today, how many have had military experience? Kurt has, Richard, and Eric. Okay, 4 of us. And who? And Wayne. Yeah, that's right, and Wayne. 5 of us. Good. That's a good percentage. We're soldiers in defending the faith of the gospel. Anybody that's been around war-type situations knows how ugly war is. I saw the refugees because they would stream into Saigon, and the city which might have been 500,000 people in peacetime, was 3 million in wartime, and refugees were everywhere. People carrying diseased babies around on their backs, and just people starving in the streets. It was a terrible time to see all that happen. That was just the effects of war, without even seeing a shot fired. Just people streaming into the city for safety, and it was much worse than that outside the city. But we need to understand war in those terms. It is a bloody, violent mess sometimes. But that's what we're called to do. We're called to defend the faith of the gospel. What is the faith of the gospel? It is that body of truth, that body of doctrine that's been given to us. You say, what do you mean the body of doctrine? You mean Jesus saves? Yeah, that's part of it. But also the doctrine of the church, the doctrine of sanctification. Every doctrine you can think of, it's that body of truth that's been given over to us, handed to us as a trust. And we're entrusted with that, and we're expected to take that in trust and present it to the next generation of Christians. And then they take it. And we entrust it to them, and they carry it, and they act upon it, and behave according to it, and give it to the next generation of Christians. And it comes down to us with that kind of history today. It's the faith once delivered unto the saints. It was delivered one time, And it's been carried all through Christian history to us today. And we have it today in this room and in this local church. That faith, that body of doctrine, that's what we're to defend. That's important. God committed this treasure unto the Apostle Paul. He says, the glorious gospel of the blessed God, which was committed to my trust. He referred to it that way. And had it committed to him, just like he committed it to others. Like Timothy, as one example, but he did it with many. He says, O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust. We don't usually speak of it in terms like this, even in our church. And it would be fine if we did, because this is really scriptural language here. This body of truth that's committed to us, we commit to other people. We tend to be much more shallow than that, don't we? Much more shallow than that. And we talk about, we want to make it, we always strive to make the preaching and teaching simple enough for everybody to understand. But in doing that many times, we just leave out a lot of the meat, so that we're always feeding people with milk and never with meat. We need to take this body of doctrine, this faith, and as a steward, and live with it, act upon it, behave according to it, and then commit it to others. Today it's in our hands. Today it's our faithfulness that will be tried in battle. Maybe you'll come to a place of battle where you should. I'm going to watch the time here. Where you'll come to a place where the battle will be you'll be ready to engage, but you won't be ready, and you'll stand back, and others will do the fighting for you. We don't want to be in that situation. I want to give you a real life. We've just barely got time for this. Stick around until this is over. I've only got 3.5 minutes of video here, but it'll be meaningful for you. In 1863, on July 3rd, the Battle of Gettysburg was coming to a conclusion. It had been fought for 3 days. I'll give you a little bit of history here because I want you to understand what was going on at Gettysburg. General Lee in the South, in the Confederate States, was of the opinion that he could bring the war to an early end and quit because the Northern armies had come down into the South. They call it the War of Northern Aggression in the South, not the Civil War typically. They had come down into the South and all the battles were being fought down there. And he thought if we can bring it to Pennsylvania, to the north, and we can beat them there at Gettysburg, then if we can beat them at Gettysburg, it'll rock them back so badly they won't have the heart in the north to continue the war anymore. And we can have our country in the south and they can have their country in the north, and we'll all be Americans and we'll have two countries and get along together. That's what his hope was. So they went to Gettysburg and fought for 3 days in Gettysburg. The Union general was General Meade. The Southern general was Robert E. Lee. And under him, he had a man named James Longstreet, who was in charge of 3 other generals, one of who was Thomas Armistead, who was primary in what we call Pickett's Charge. And Pickett's Charge was one of the last things that happened in the Battle of Gettysburg, where about 12,500 Confederates were rushing Cemetery Hill, and it was doomed to fail. They didn't make it. They were all they weren't all wiped out, but they were defeated there, and that effectively ended the Battle of Gettysburg. But when those men fought, what they were fighting for in their minds and in their hearts was for their country, and this was Virginia for this brigade, the biggest brigade. For fighting for Virginia, for their hearts, for their wives, their mothers, their sons, their daughters, their families, their homes. That's what they were fighting for. I want you to understand how men feel about that as you watch this. I'm going to show you a clip from the movie Gettysburg that came out in 1994. And I want you to imagine how a Christian ought to view the battle as you watch these guys approaching Pickett's Charge. Let me make sure I got enough volume here. Yeah, we're good. Okay, and I hope this will be a blessing for you. Think of approaching this as a believer, not in the Civil War battle sense, but just in the terms of being in a battle and what it requires of you, and what it requires of your heart and the commitment you must make to carry the battle.
Virginians! For your lands! For your homes! For your sweethearts! For your wives! For Virginia! Forward! March!
So on July 3rd, 1863, in Cemetery Hill, Gettysburg, Virginia, 1,500 Union soldiers died in this one battle, Pickett's Charge. And there were 2,655 Confederate casualties. That's dead and wounded, and taken prisoner. So it was quite a battle, and it effectively ended the Gettysburg Battle of Gettysburg, and probably effectively over time ended the Civil War, the war between the states. That was a big deal. There were two American armies locked in mortal combat, fighting for their countries, fighting for their families. They were, and then we have this song we sing in church sometimes, and I don't hear us ever sing it here. I used to hear it sung a lot in missions conferences when I would go around. I do not sing well, but I want you to hear. How many know this song? Am I a soldier of the cross? Not enough of you. I'm gonna do some damage to it here. But it goes, am I a soldier of the cross, a follower of the Lamb? And shall I fear to own his cause, or blush to speak his name? Must I be carried to the skies on flowery beds of ease, while others fought to win the prize and sailed through bloody seas? Are there no foes for me to face? Must I not stem the flood? Is this vile world a friend to grace, to help me on to God? Sure, I must fight if I would reign. Increase my courage, Lord. I'll bear the toil, endure the pain, supported by thy word. That ought to be the cry of our heart. Willing to fight the battle and do the work. With that in mind, I'd like to ask. We have a lady in our class here who went on a missionary trip recently. I am excited to hear her talk about it. Debbie, you want to come on up now? And I don't think she would have volunteered to do this. I asked her to do it, and so here she is. But Debbie Lutz went on I'm not going to tell you everything because I don't know everything. But let me have you take this, and you don't have to wear it, but you can just hold it up like a microphone, okay? Just. And thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. Okay.
Because Beth wants to hear it.
Okay. Can you hear me? No.
Hold it closer to your lips.
Can you hear me?
No.
No. Yes. Okay. I'm not a public speaker, but Jay asked me, and I agreed. So hopefully I can give you a good idea of what happened. First of all, I'm thankful to the Lord for the opportunity to have gone on a medical mission trip. It was a real privilege to meet these dear people of Honduras and hopefully contribute to the improvement of their health, and then hopefully also move them closer to a knowledge of Jesus Christ, because that's the whole purpose of it. Some of you were probably here. It was back in May, on a Sunday morning. Our missions Pastor Fielder had asked a gentleman to come and speak on medical missions. Some of you may remember that. His name was Mr. Bradley Edmondson, and Pastor Fielder knew him from Ohio. I think they had gone to church together or anyway. And so he spoke about Medical Missions Outreach. It's an organization that Mr. Edmondson had started. And I'm just going to read, it's just two sentences. It's kind of like their what do you call it?
Mission?
Their mission, their purpose. Medical Missions Outreach visits undeveloped countries to provide health care to those in need. Medical professionals from all across the United States unite to form various teams to share the love of Christ using the tool of medicine. That is their purpose. And so I was interested in it because my background is I was a surgical nurse, and I'm retired from that. I have an easier job now. So I'm not totally retired. But I was interested because they offered surgical mission trips, okay? They also offer medical mission trips, optical, dental, as well as the surgical. And so that's kind of sparked my interest. And so I reached out to them. And then in June of each year, they put out the next year's schedule. And so when that came up, I applied for March, and just within a couple days was accepted. So I knew clear back last June that I was going to be going to this. And their surgical teams go to Honduras. It's El Progreso, Honduras, because they have built a actual surgery center there. Their teams go all over, all their, dental and optical, but the surgical teams go there for now. And they average like 4 to 5 teams going there each year. And so, let's see, they started doing surgeries at a local Honduran hospital like back in 2009. And the hospital would let them have like an operating room. And so they would have a team go there and work. But I mean, it's not like the United States at all. It was very dirty. They did not get good care. They really didn't respect the patient's dignity. And so they began praying about building their own surgical center. And the missionaries there in Honduras, was a sweet family. It's Matt and Dalita Goins, Goins. Oh, yeah. And is that how you say it? Okay. And they have 3 sons, and they were called to Honduras. This December, they will have been there 20 years. And it's kind of sad because they lost one of their sons last year in a tragic accident. The 3 sons were at Pensacola, and their middle son was killed in an accident. He was working off campus. They had cut grass and they were blowing the grass off of the sidewalk and stuff. This was like in 3:30 in the afternoon, and a drunk driver came and just hit him from the back, and so never knew what hit him. And so it'd be a year this Thursday. So you can tell it's really affected them, but it's a really wonderful family. And so anyway, there was a couple that had asked we have money. It's nice to have money, and we want to donate it to what you're doing there in Honduras. And they said, well, what could you use? And they had said, well, an ultrasound, $10,000. Oh, sure, no problem. And they said, we have more money. We want to do more. And they said, well, really, we would like to build a surgery center. And he said, well, how much do you think it would cost? And they said like $1,000. And he said, well, yeah, we'll do that. And so they began the plans and everything, and realized it was going to cost more than that. And so like $300,000. So they went back to the people and said, we appreciate the money you donated. It's going to cost more, and we can give the money back to you. We can hold on to it and try to raise more money. What would you like? And they said, we'll give the whole thing. And so this couple, elderly couple, had given the money to build the whole thing. And it really is a nice facility. There's just like 2 operating rooms, and then there's an instrument room and a lot of supply rooms and a pre-op and recovery area. And then above it, they built, it's like dorms. Okay, that's where we stayed. And then they have this huge kitchen, dining area, and a living room area all above. So basically, we were there the whole time. And it's just very, very nice. So that was a real blessing. And so then they actually began having teams come to the surgery center there in 2019. And then COVID hit. And so, they had to stop that for a while. But they work with the local hospital. They don't take patients away from the local hospital. They have a social worker that is in contact with them and asks, what kind of patients do you have that really there's no hope of them getting the care that they need? And so that's the ones that they tunnel through. So it's not just they can just come up to the surgery center, knock at the door and say, I need surgery, can you help me? So they really have it well thought out. And in Honduras, it makes you thankful for what we have here in our country. Our country really is the best in the world. We have our issues, but in Honduras, the patients that need surgery, they have to buy all their supplies for their surgery. The hospital gives them a list, and this is what you need to have your surgery, all the medical supplies. And obviously, a lot of them can't afford that. And they also have to donate blood. That's how they keep their blood supply in stock. Either the patient has to donate blood or a family member. Okay, so that's a lot different from here in the U.S. And also, they don't have pathologists at the hospital. Those, like if you have, suspected cancer, they take out a lump or something, they oftentimes send it to the pathologist right there when you're in surgery, and then they'll come up and check it out and give initial report. Yes, it is cancer. You need to get more of the area or whatever. And so they don't do that. If you have your surgery at a Honduran hospital and you think it's like cancer or whatever, they give you the specimen to take home, and you have to find your own pathologist and pay for it. So I mean, things that we don't even think about. And it's pretty interesting. And some of the patients that we had, you look at their chart, and like some of these patients have been having pain for years. I mean, this one gentleman for 30 years. Now, it's not necessarily a constant pain, but he had some kind of an incident like when in his 30s, and now he's in his 60s, and and so it's just people that really, really appreciate what we do for them. The surgical team is from all over the U.S. Like our surgeon and his wife, they came from Oregon. The anesthesiologist came from Texas. The pre-op recovery couple, it was a husband and wife team. They came from Hammond, Indiana, and we had a physician assistant from Idaho. And the neat thing about it is the scrub was, James Pinner from church here. His sister is a surgical nurse at St. Francis, and she had always wanted to go on a trip. And so when we had that, Mr. Edmondson speak, then he took the information to her, and she applied at the same time I did. And so it was kind of nice. We got together a couple times before we went on the trip and talked about it, and we were able to go together and room together. So that really worked out nice. And you don't have to be a Christian to go on these trips. You just have to abide by their guidelines, and mainly it's like just modesty in what you wear. You don't smoke or drink or anything like that. And they've said they've actually had doctors that have gotten saved as a result of going on these trips, which is a blessing. Our anesthesiologist is not saved, but within the last year, she's gone on 3 of these trips with this organization. So obviously she likes the people, and I mean, she's hearing the gospel, because we would start out our day with devotions from Pastor Matt or the assistant pastor Nathan, and she's heard their testimony and everything. So hopefully her name was Paige, that she'll be saved. And I was just going to say, the surgical team is basically made up of at least 4 people. You have the surgeon, the anesthesiologist. You have to have a scrub that passes the instruments. That's the one that you see on TV and whatever. And then the circulator, which was my role, and I've always enjoyed that, because you have I talk fast. That just means I'm not nervous. I'm just talking fast. But so hopefully you can listen fast. But the circulator is the one that has the contact with the patient, normally goes to pre-op and see the patient, meets the family and brings them back, and helps anesthesia put the patient off to sleep, and does the prep and positioning, and just make sure everything goes well in the room. So that was my role there. We did 16 surgeries. We worked Monday through Thursday, and then Friday was like a day that we just they rented a beach house. And so we were like at the ocean, and we had just time to relax, which was nice. Our surgeon was a general surgeon, then he specialized also in vascular. So we did like cholecystectomies, removing gallbladders and hernias, and put in some mesh in some of the hernias. And it was mainly adult. We did 1 5-year-old little boy, but the rest were all 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Let's see. So our day started out like at 6 o'clock. Well, first of all, when we got there on Saturday, it was just a long day. They did take us out to a restaurant to eat there, a lot different from here. And then we went to the center and got to see where we were sleeping, and they gave us a tour of the whole place and everything. And then Saturday, we got up and just got things ready. The surgeon and the PA and the anesthesiologist, they saw all the patients and did all of that. And then we got things ready and getting the instruments ready and the rooms cleaned up and everything. And then we started on Monday. We started every day with breakfast at 6. They provided all the food for us. And then at 6:30, we would have a devotion from one of the pastors, and then started like at 7. It's convenient. We just went right downstairs and then just started. This is a real ministry of the local church. The whole compound is within walls. They have a concrete wall around the whole place, and then like wire on the top. And there's the church, which is a pretty good size, and then the surgery center, and then they have 2 children's homes, and then plenty of space, a playground and stuff, and an area to play for them. And so this whole thing is really a ministry of the church. And they made that clear, which is good. I mean, sometimes we think as Americans we're going in to save people and do all this wonderful stuff, but this is the ministry of the church, and we went there to assist them and to help them in their work. So we would do the surgery. they had a lady, Jessica, that would meet all the patients as they came in. And again, they spoke all their language. They helped them fill out paperwork and stuff. And then they brought them to pre-op, and they, changed their gown, just like here, in the States, start IVs, that kind of thing. And then our staff would leave the room, and then the church people would come in. I don't know if they had one or two. They would talk with them, get to know them, ask if they had any prayer requests, ask about their family. Can our church help you in any way? Do you need some, you have some needs that we can assist you with? And they share the gospel. I mean, each of them did that, share the gospel with them. And then the anesthesiologist would go get the patient, bring the patient back to surgery, and an interpreter would go with them, so we can just, so they would feel comfortable, tell them they need to get up on the bed now. We're putting a safety strap on them. You're going off to sleep now, and that kind of thing. And then they would leave the room. And then and recovery, they would have, again, interpreters. They also had these two young men that worked for an ambulance service, and they would, I guess they really have, I don't know how they got connected with it, but they're there now every time that, that we do surgery, and they really like to be a part of it. And, again, they can hear the gospel, and so. But the whole process here that the church and the pastor does is just very well thought out. The pastor and his wife are there each day, talking to the patients, getting to know them. After, they go home, and then a few days later, the pastor calls them, checks on them, and then within a few weeks, someone from the church comes out and gives them a gift basket, and they just follow up with them. So, they're doing what the church is supposed to be doing, and it's just really a blessing. And then the ladies of the church, they provided food for us. They would cook, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They provided lunch for us. And it's not like, in the States, you don't just break for lunch and close the OR, but there you had to, because there was nobody to relieve us. So we had a, 45-minute break and enjoyed the meal from them, and then went back. The days were long, and I knew that. It was just exactly what I thought it would be. It was like 12 plus hours a day, You think 4 surgeries, but you never know with surgery how long things are going to take. The shortest case we thought ended up being the longest. But we're thankful to the Lord. All the surgeries went well. There is follow-up. There's a nurse that stays there for a few weeks that is part of this whole program. She works for MMO, and they follow up with the patients, and then they start getting ready for the next one. I think there's another team going in April. So let's see. And it was just a blessing because the team just really worked well together, and that's what I was praying. The surgeon was like just one of the nicest guys I've met in my whole life. Very soft-spoken, and he and his wife, I told him they were probably like the most Christ-like couple I've met in my life. And it's a blessing because working with surgeons over the years has not always been very pleasant. But anyway, we had to stay on the compound. It was not what they had thought. They had planned on taking us out to eat, but again, it makes you thankful for our country because they have one main road there in El Progreso, and they were doing major construction. They weren't even paving it, but they called it major, and I don't know, they were kind of maybe filling in holes or whatever. They would literally stop the traffic one way for like an hour, okay, period. Whether people are coming or not, they stop it for an hour, and then after the hour, or maybe 15 minutes, they'll, shut that lane down and let the other people go. And so, it just made a mess of everything. And so they did not take us out to eat, which was fine. They a lot of times would order in and stuff. But they couldn't get by. We couldn't get by with something like that here in the States. People would be late for work all the time. They had to cancel Wednesday night service because of it, because people just could not, get there. So they also on the premises, they have 2 children's homes, and they have, in one home they had 15 children. The other one they had 21. They could hold up to 34. And at that home they had an American couple, and it's a different organization. It's called Children's Hope, or Hope Children's Home. I think it's based out in Florida. And it's like they do an amazing work too. It's just these kids. We got to visit with them Sunday night. They had a pizza little party and got to play with the kids and everything. And it's interesting because the kids there, they're not necessarily orphans. It's just like the parents have surrendered them because they can't take care of them financially or whatever, and so they can come and visit them. But some of the kids, like they're 8 now, and they've been there their whole life. They gave us a tour of the place, and that's just amazing too. parents working with these kids, and they do have school above their quarters, and they do have like 3 teachers from America that work with them. And the thing is, did anybody get saved? Not that we know of, but as I think Jay was mentioned earlier, you don't see the fruit right away. They gave us an example of a trip they had done to Honduras a while back, and it was optical team. So they was passing out eyeglasses, and this one lady received eyeglasses, and it just, obviously changed her life. And that was it. She then was near an accident, car accidents, and she was close enough that got hit by some flying debris and messed up her shoulder, and she had to have surgery, not with our surgery center. But after that, she got to thinking, I could have died. I should have died. And it got her to think about, what happens after you die. And she looked up the church, because again, the church is involved, or this church was, and ended up getting saved, and her 2 boys got saved. And now they are helping, the original church has 2 church plants in different parts of Honduras. And now this lady and her 2 sons, they live near one of the church starts, and there she is an active member and helping with the church plant. So they told us, you won't necessarily see the fruit. I mean, we may not see it this side of heaven, or, we may know trickle here and there. So I just want to, challenge you to pray about maybe going on a mission trip sometime, or maybe if you can't physically or whatever, you can help support those. I think our teens are going to South Africa, I believe, this year or next year. That's an opportunity to help, and of course pray for those that are going, that hearts would be open to the gospel. So just make yourself available to God and look for opportunities. Did anybody have, I know it's real fast, did anybody have any question about anything?
Were you just 1 week?
Yes, we went on a Friday, and then we came back the following, this Saturday.
Will you do it again?
I would, as I told them, I would definitely do it if I was still practicing nursing. I have issues with my back because of nursing, and so this, in a way, was kind of like my last hurrah. I'm not ruling out going with them more as a volunteer, non-medical. So who knows? But yeah, I would definitely, if you know of anybody, that's, in any kind of medical, dental, optometry, I would definitely recommend it, because it's very, top notch. They kept us informed all along the way what we would be doing and our roles, and and they don't just have one team. They have all these teams at different times of the year, and they're just really on top of it. It's well done. So, okay, thank you, Jane.
I'm sorry. You broke my microphone.
Thank you.
We thought she was nice, then she broke my microphone. Yes.
Tuesday morning, my husband and a lot of people from the church I'm a member of, go on a lot of Samaritan's Purse trips,
Yeah.
tornado, hurricane. So Tuesday morning, they're leaving for Winchester, where they had the tornado. And so they're going up there, and everyone wants to pray for their safety going up.
Excellent.
And coming back. It's just a one-day trip. Usually it's fine for a week or two.
Okay, good. Now, let me say, Debbie's not a hero, okay? She's a normal Christian lady. Look, just like you got some normal Christian ladies in here, you got some normal Christian men. You just look for opportunities. That's what she did. She saw an opportunity. She seized on it, and she did it. Every one of us can do the same thing. There just isn't any difference. You say, well, I'm not a nurse. Fine. You don't have to. That's the whole thing. Paul recognized he had an enemy. It's Satan himself. He's out to steal the faith, the body of doctrine that's come down to us, that's been entrusted to us from God's people. He met him in Philippi. There was that demonized young woman who was following them around saying, these men are the servants of the Most High God who show us the way of salvation. And finally, Paul got fed up with her and cast the demon out of her, right? And there was that. Paul took advantage of the situation that he had. And then he wound up in jail and in prison. You say, well, I hadn't thought about having a prison ministry by being a prisoner. Okay? But that was the opportunity, and that's what he used. Every one of us can use the opportunities God gives us to serve Him and serve Him effectively. That's what Debbie did. We thank God for her. And she's I won't say a lot about Debbie. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. So don't feel like, well, I don't know how to do this or I don't know how to do that. You know how to be a believer, and you know how to read your Bible, and you know how to, you've got some skills if you need to use some skills, or you can just be there and share the gospel with people. It's just the way we do it. If Satan can rob believers of their faith, of their Christian faith, that the faith that was delivered to the saints, if he can do that, if he can rob believers of the doctrines that are distinctively ours, he gave them to us, the blood of Christ, the atonement for sin, salvation by faith, the local church, the presence of the Holy Spirit, sanctification, living a holy life, all the things, and I could go on and on naming doctrines, right? But all of that, they belong to us. They've been handed down to us by others and entrusted to us, and we have them in the Word of God, the written Word of God. They're for us to use and to hand off to others. That's what we're here for. That's part of being in the battle. You say, this guy handed me a rifle. Does that mean I got to go fight? Well, probably. That's what the rifle's for. God gave us the Word of God. He gave us the faith. We're to use it. We're to be effective in the service of the Lord Jesus. If Satan can rob us of that, if he can steal your rifle, if he can steal your boots that you march in, then he can cripple and defeat the ministry of the gospel. Or if you're passive about this and say, well, that's cool, and you let life go on around, everything just go on around you, that would be the greatest shame for any of us, I think, if we just let the stream of witnesses that have come before us just flow on around us, and we just stand there thinking, oh, how cool, look at all those people going by. We ought to be part of that. We ought to be part of that. We ought to be in the battle. We're close to, we're at 10:15. So let me just end with this. I've got this.